If you are one of the millions of targeted individuals who are being sabotaged or subverted by illegal state-sponsored subversion programs, including crimes commonly referred to as gang stalking or electronic harassment, subscribing to this channel may save your life. I probably know more about the inner workings and weaknesses of these programs, their Achilles heels, than any targeted individual in the world, and I have the evidence to prove it. This treasonous program is being executed by teams of operatives planted in the US, UK, Canadian, Australian, and New Zealand governments, by the military-industrial complex, central banks, and other elements of the corporatocracy. And the evidence to expose their crimes is available online right now. It's found in books like License to Lie, Exposing Corruption in the Department of Justice by former DOJ prosecutor Sidney Powell.
Now, I recently read a powerful book, read it in one day. It's titled License to Lie, Uncovering Corruption in the Department of Justice. Now, I recommend that you read this book, because if even half of it is true, and I believe it is true, you have a lot of work to do to clean up that department. Will you consider doing that for me?
Thank you, sir, I will.
She writes that overzealous, ambitious, narcissistic, and dishonest prosecutors destroy innocent people by deliberately withholding evidence they knew contradicted their cases. A small, powerful group of Washington overlords, federal prosecutors, sometimes break rules to win cases, often wrecking the lives of people who did nothing wrong.
And in documentaries like Diary of a Person of Interest by journalist, activist, and political leader Susie Dawson.
How do they target us? What do they do to us? Obviously, there's surveillance. This surveillance leads to harassment, state-sanctioned, state-funded harassment. That leads to isolation of the targets as they're more and more harassed. That includes sabotage of our personal effects and of our lives, of the paths of our lives, our relationships and our careers. Then it becomes entrapment, because if we're not doing something illegal, then that's a big problem for them, because they want us to be doing something illegal so that they can justify what they're doing to us. So if we're not doing something illegal, they invent illegal things for us to do and try to suck us into them. Eventually it leads to some form of institutionalization. And if they cannot be successful at any of the aforementioned, if they cannot institutionalize you, in select cases, there are assassination attempts.
However, Powell and Dawson don't quite understand what they've uncovered, which is where I fit into the picture. One of the common tactics the Five Eyes employ to entrap, frame, and eliminate targeted individuals is called a push-pull operation. Among other things, push-pull operations were used to frame George Papadopoulos of the Trump campaign and launch the Russiagate investigation.
The best way to envision this, folks, is to look at it like a push-pull operation. If you were going to frame someone, which I am absolutely certain Papadopoulos was set up, certain. Mifsud was not a Russian entity, okay? He was not. You envision it as a push-pull operation. If I want to frame you for a bank robbery you didn't commit, I have to push information into your orbit first about this bank robbery that will be pulled out later by someone working with law enforcement to make you look like a middleman. It's a push-pull. Mifsud is the push. He pushes this information into Papadopoulos about these Russian emails, which Downer and Halper, the Central Intelligence Agency asset, working with the United States government, try to pull out later to make Papadopoulos look like a cutout here. The problem is everyone in this space, Brian, everyone is deeply connected to Western intelligence.
Exactly.
Stefan Halper, Downer, they're all connected to Friendly.
In a push-pull operation, the Five Eyes identify their target's weaknesses and send operatives to intercept and lure them into sophisticated entrapment schemes, where teams work together to fabricate the emails, documents, phone calls, and other propaganda that can be used to brainwash witnesses, the public, and judges. For example, the Five Eyes might identify and destroy each of your sources of income and legitimacy with teams of brainwashed gang stalkers while torturing you remotely in order to discredit you as being mentally ill and to enslave, isolate, and trap and frame you for tax crimes, frauds, or other infractions. If anything like this has happened to you and you don't subscribe to this channel, you're making a serious mistake. This video is the first in an educational series called How to Defeat the Targeted Individual Program. You can find the full playlist on my YouTube channel page. I'll try to publish new videos every week unless the Five Eyes manage to censor or kill me. By the time I'm done, the playlist should be around 100 videos with an average runtime of between 5 to 20 minutes each. The Five Eyes and DOJ case against me is interconnected to the storyline detailed in the book License to Lie. As a result, my case explains why these series of highly strategic targets were framed up and subverted, including US senators, major corporations, executives, and a wide array of other targets. Through the classified documents disclosed by Edward Snowden, my case is connected to literally anybody in the world whose phone calls and communications are being intercepted by the NSA or any target of the DOJ. And this includes Edward Snowden himself, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, Susie Dawson, those convicted in the Russiagate scandal, and even President Trump. At its core, what this evidence shows is that the military systems used to psychologically manipulate populations to hate terrorists and insurgent groups have been adapted to subvert public and private organizations and societies of any kind. One of the key aspects of this type of warfare is the use and exploitation of propaganda. So, by exposing the fake criminal case against me as a warfare campaign in which they tried to use propaganda to eliminate me, including through brainwashing hundreds of witnesses and coaching informants to lie and fabricate evidence, exposes the existence of the system, and it explains exactly what gang stalking really is. A way for the deep state to subvert any individual, organization, or nation and get away with it. I've subdivided the Five Eyes campaign against me and other integrated targets into 4 sub-campaigns or chapters. This channel will walk through these chapters step by step in high detail, so you can see how I acquired this information, as well as understand the massive deep state effort to falsely imprison me to conceal the truth, which continues through till today. By the time you finish chapter 1, you'll understand what the Targeted Individual Program is, what its objectives are, and the connection of this program to President Bush, Dick Cheney, Robert Mueller, James Comey, and the neocons, the book License to Lie, the documentary Diary of a Person of Interest, and the classified documents disclosed by NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. In Chapter 2, you'll see how the FBI, DOJ, and the Five Eyes covered up the existence of Chapter 1 in order to conceal the evidence that proved my innocence, and that the deep state is using the Targeted Individual Program to secretly transfer control of public and private organizations to their front organizations and operatives. Chapter 2 details how the FBI and Five Eyes brainwashed dozens of informants, including my closest friends and family, to destroy me using gang stalking tactics. But their plan backfired because the Five Eyes operatives had already taught me how the program worked during the first chapter. By Chapter 3, you'll see that I have the evidence to prove that the Five Eyes spying alliance and the Department of Justice had been penetrated and hijacked by the deep state. But they destroyed all of my sources of income, had me under physical surveillance 24/7, blocked me from retaining lawyers, blocked the police from honestly examining my evidence. They tried to use fabricated evidence, hundreds of false witnesses coached to lie, and the brainwashing of my contacts to fool them into believing that I suffered a mental breakdown in order to prevent me from enforcing the law. In Chapter 4, I finally discover millions of other targeted individuals on YouTube who don't understand what gang stalking and electronic harassment are. At that point, I immediately knew I had the evidence to save their lives. And so, I thought I was finally free. But the corrupt officials targeting me have blocked me from blowing the whistle by intercepting my communications and brainwashing and recruiting anyone I try to talk to help discredit, entrap, and frame me. This includes brainwashing their own victims to pretend that they've looked at my evidence, so they can use those false witnesses to fool judges and other third parties into believing that the evidence that exposes their crimes is meaningless. In other words, the Five Eyes are bribing and brainwashing targeted individuals with hate propaganda to become gang stalkers before they have a chance to realize that I'm on their side and have the evidence to save them. One of the Five Eyes cover stories is that if I was really a threat, I would have been dead a long time ago. But in actuality, they've contained me in a concealed type of prison for years, which you might understand if you're a targeted individual. To help you understand my current situation, I'm under surveillance 24/7. My phones, car, home are all monitored. Even if I use an air-gapped computer, the Five Eyes use a system like Tempest, where they're able to remotely read my computer screen and then rapidly block or disrupt anything I try to do which threatens them. If I try to do anything that involves generating an income or resources to fight back, they immediately run counter operations. They contact these people and let them know that I'm a criminal suspect and a compulsive liar. And they use these lies to destroy anything I try to create. The key to the Five Eyes containment strategy is they fabricate evidence of a false story to conceal what actually happened during these 4 chapters. So if I say I'm one of the biggest whistleblowers in the world, they counter by saying that I'm mentally ill, delusional, and insignificant loser. And they have a large archive of fabricated evidence and false witnesses that back up their false story. Thus, the only way for me to escape this containment is to share my account of what actually happened, to expose the evidence fabrication and witness coercion process, so other targeted individuals can realize the fabricated criminal case against me holds the answers to setting them free. Because they've coached over 100 informants to lie, brainwashed hundreds of witnesses and even the police to believe their lies about me are true, they need to block anyone from inspecting my evidence with an open mind. If I threaten to publish the evidence to prove I've been framed by the targeted individual program, they'll quickly leak that information to their brainwashed informants and direct them to silence me with false flag lawsuits and fraudulently procured injunctions, while blocking me from retaining legal counsel. Essentially, they're trying to force me into prison while concealing hundreds of criminal acts that would have their case against me thrown out and expose the Five Eyes sponsorship of a secret war versus targeted individuals, including whistleblowers, activists, journalists, economic targets, normal folks, and even President Trump. Everything I am disclosing in these videos is based on actual events and Five Eyes operations. However, to tell my story, I have to conceal my face and other details, like the actual names or cities, so if someone identifies me, we'll know they're informants of the deep state task force targeting me, who are desperate to conceal their crimes from being published. If you're a targeted individual, you probably heard about the FBI's old counterintelligence program called COINTELPRO. Well, once that program was exposed in the 1970s, it was quickly shut down by the FBI. Well, I first exposed the Five Eyes targeted individual program nearly a decade ago. Since then, I've survived dozens of attempts by corrupt Five Eyes and Department of Justice officials to discredit, bankrupt, frame, and eliminate me, to conceal this information from the public. If you want to escape being targeted, you need to understand my story. If you've been defrauded, tortured, discredited, and enslaved by the Five Eyes targeted individual program, you have a choice to make. You can keep letting them destroy you, or you can invest the time to understand the key to saving your life and the lives of millions, including my own. I hope you choose the latter. If you're a targeted individual, in the comments I'd love to hear how long you've been targeted and what country you're from. Happy holidays.